the situation for the Antichrist is just about present. The Antichrist has to be able to rule the world. He's not going to rule through governance. He's going to rule it through economies. And so, even though he'll have control of the governments too, but the Antichrist would actually, when he appears, there has to be a unification of the worldwide economy in order for him, to a degree that's a little bit farther down the road than ours is at this point. So I don't think that he's just immediately around the corner, but I could be wrong. The other way that it can actually happen is there's going to be a chastisement that's going to come. And that chastisement will be a minor chastisement, but it's going to be the type of thing where, excuse me, we're going to see infrastructure. God's going to basically allow some type of war or something that's going to happen to such a degree that, it's going to be brutal even for us who are good and who are prepped and ready for it and all of that. It's going to be brutal for everybody.
When you say, I can't remember how you said it, but you said it sounded like you were saying the stage is kind of set. Yeah. Almost everything that's happened needs to happen. What has happened that needed to happen, and what still needs to happen?
Well, before the Antichrist comes, one of the things that we know from the fathers of the church is that there will be a worldwide implosion of people's morality. So, which we've seen, right? So that's happened since the 1950s. There's been an implosion where people just aren't following the laws of God or the natural law in any sense of the term. So we have that. The other part of it is, again, is the unification of the worldwide economies, because he has to be able to basically control people en masse. The other thing is it has to be something that the people that are alive, that in order to survive, you have to be able to plug into that economy in some fashion. That's why they talk about the mark of the beast. Well, we're almost there, where they could literally just decide, look, unless you're going to sign off on certain things, you're not going to have access to the digital currency that we're going to enact worldwide, and therefore, because that's how he could rule it. At least that's my opinion. I think that's one of the ways how he's going to control people is through digital currencies, and he's going to just shut people off, and that's how they'll be able to basically starve people out if they're unwilling to sign off on the Antichrist's rules. So it's going to be those kinds of things have, as I mentioned, have come into play.
So we're talking like social credit score.
Yeah, that's right, among other things. The other thing is we also know that the Catholic Church specifically will have to be at a state where it would have to have gone through a prior weakening crisis, and then it will resurge, and then right before the Antichrist comes, the morals of people will implode, they say, in such a rapid fashion to where this last 50 years will make our heads spin. It'll be that much more rapid. So there's some prophecies that have been fulfilled and some of them that haven't quite been.
When you say good people, I mean, is that everybody? Everybody will be under the influence?
Well, they say that the Antichrist will be so charismatic, and it will be that unless a person has specific graces from God, you're going to easily get sucked into into what he teaches and what he professes, which of course is going to be a rejection of Christ, and he will set himself up as the Messiah, but it'll be a political type of a thing. The other thing that has to happen too once he shows up, of course, the two prophets that are in heaven, Elijah and Enoch have to return. They're put to death. Because they actually return and preach against him. So those types of things have to happen before Christ actually returns and finally puts him to death.
Do we know what names they'll use?
We don't. You mean as Elijah and Enoch? It'll be clear who they are.
What about the temple?
According to the fathers of the church, at least the ones that I've read, they said the temple will never be rebuilt. And it will never be rebuilt. And the reason being is because, first of all, Julian the Apostate tried to rebuild it, and it was destroyed in the process. Christ actually put an end to the Jewish sacrifice on purpose, because the Jewish sacrifice in the Old Testament was a lead-up or a prefigurement of Christ. And so he gave them one generation in order for them to convert to Christianity. And when they didn't, he put an end to their sacrifice. So technically speaking, there hasn't been practicing Jews in 2,000 years because the temple hasn't been around. They haven't been able to offer sacrifice. Doesn't mean that they don't pray and things of that sort, but they haven't been able to enact their primary religious duties, which is to offer sacrifice. Plus, their Levitic line, which is their priestly line, was destroyed. So, but then, and the difficulty is people tend to misinterpret the book of Daniel, which says when the abomination of desolation takes its seat in the temple. What they don't realize is that is not a reference to the Jewish temple. That's where the Protestants are getting it wrong. So a lot of the Protestants are thinking, oh, well, let's help the Jews rebuild the temple, and then that will usher in, because Christ is going to return, after they think the temple is going to be rebuilt. And then as a result of that, I should say, the temple has to be rebuilt in order for the Antichrist to put himself in there. So let's do that so that the Antichrist will come, and then that means that Christ will come, and that's kind of their reasoning behind it. Well, first of all, just getting through the years of the Antichrist is going to be brutal, so I wouldn't be pushing that. But the fathers of the church are very clear that it'll never be rebuilt, and that the reference to the abomination of desolation taking its seat in the temple is actually a reference to the Catholic Church. That's what the fathers say it's a reference to. That there's going to be some way in which the situation in the church will become compromised to such a degree. It doesn't mean that people have to know it, but its essential elements will still remain intact. But that the Catholic Church itself would become compromised in that process.
Jeez. When we're talking about the social critics, with the ruling through the economy,
yeah,
and you had mentioned the mark of the beast. It's just in the past 6 years, I've heard lots of different things that could be the mark of the beast. The first one being the COVID shot.
Yeah.
The next one I've always heard is digital currency. Another one could be Neuralink.
Yeah.
And so what I want to ask is, this is, what are people supposed to do? Let's say that they do usher in the new digital currency, and I'm sure it won't appear to be the mark of the beast. But maybe it becomes more obvious, as time goes on with people holding out. I think about this all the time.
Right.
I have kids, they're small. I have a wife, I have people that depend on me. What are we supposed to do if we can't eat, take care of ourselves, provide for our families? What are we supposed to do?
Well, I think there's
if that's the only way you can survive, what are we supposed to do? Is the head of the family?
Yeah, the way the fathers of the church talk about, though, is they say that the mark of the beast, you can't receive the mark of the beast. So it's supposed to be something that's it could be the type of thing that they get to the point where you just don't even have to carry credit cards, or even that your bank account will just be linked to this chip that's in you, and because that's how they could actually do it. The thing, though, is that the fathers of the church say that you're not going to be able to get that chip without some type of renunciation of Christ. There's going to have to be some religious thing you're going to have to accept that is contrary to the will of God and contrary to Christ. And so the moral of the story is that you have to be willing to sacrifice the lesser good in order to achieve the greater good. You have to be willing to, I have to follow Christ regardless of the personal cost. Now, God will also very often provide for people. If it's his holy will that people survive that time frame, he'll make it possible for them to do it. The other thing is I've learned, which in the military, you've probably seen this too, the tighter you put your grip on a group of people, the more stuff slips through your fingers. And so I think that type of thing, there will be ways in which people will be able to survive. But I think they also have to be smart about it and actually learn just basic survival skills, learn how to fend for themselves just based on nature and things of that sort. But I think it's going to become extraordinarily difficult, especially with the way the technology is getting, to be able to even evade detection.
I think so too.
Yeah.
I think about this all the time.
Yeah.